Hey, it's Rev. Welcome back. Today I'm going to dive into a little bit of the idea of, hey, it's moving around. A little bit of the idea of making bass tones on your own using an onboard software synth that comes with Ableton. This was inspired by a conversation I had recently with Brandon Lane, aka Old Soul Music. I will put a bunch of his links in the description, of course, and you can check him out. Great bass player, producer, basically a scholar on Earth, Wind, and Fire. So this dude is fire. Anyway, I did a interview with him on episode 2 of the Renoise podcast, which is available on Spotify and Apple Music, and you can check all that out when you want to. So I was inspired by a conversation that we had about bass tones. So I thought I would make a quick video. I'll show you what he had to say about it, and then I'll jump into Ableton. We'll go from there.
I'll always use like analog tape kind of saturation or analog like emulation of some sort to kind of give it a little more of that mid warmth and kind of just kind of give it a little more of a punchy feel.
But one of the things that I've been doing is taking, two different oscillators and then tuning one to like a fifth apart from the other one.
Yeah.
And then kind of just rolling off like the filter, so it's like super low, but there's two different like tones happening at the same time, and they're fifths apart, so they're not really ever going to clash.
Right.
Okay, now we're here in Ableton. So what I have here in this first audio track is a Shroom, who is a drum break producer. So it's just a basic drum break that I'll use as just kind of a background. And what I want to do is open up a synth bass. So within within Ableton, they have a bunch of different instruments. But the one that I'll choose is this called Analog. So I'll double click and bring that up. And what Analog is, it's basically like their version of a 2 oscillator synth. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the meat and potatoes of synth headaches because I don't really understand synthesis too much. But if you just Google or YouTube subtractive synth, you'll understand. What you basically need to know is that this is a replica of an older analog synth. I'm going to turn off this second oscillator first so we can just kind of hear what this sounds like raw. I'm just playing up and down. So this is just this basic saw wave. There's a square wave, saw wave, sine wave. It's like the 808 vibe. So what I'll do first is just get like a saw wave up. It's very buzzy. So if you move over to this kind of section, this is the filter section. And what this will do is take off the high end. You can hear it changing. I'm going to change the envelope down to 0 for now. So as I move this knob, it's changing the filter. So it's basically cutting out all of the high information, okay? And that's what we want to focus on mostly. So I have one sound here, an oscillator 1. If I turn on the other sound, what we talked about in the video was this idea of tuning the second oscillator to a fifth apart from it. That's a major fifth. The way that Ableton does it is in semitones, so it would actually be a seventh. So I'll bring that up a little bit. So you can hear where it's at. I'm just kind of changing. So that is a perfect fifth apart. So now we have this sound. So what you could do is just let's bring down this envelope, or let's bring down the filter. So it sounds like this. Okay, you can control actually how the filter moves with this attack, decay, sustain, and release envelope. And what that means is I can change how fast the filter will come in, how quickly it will decay. If I press down the button, like where will it end? So it will go up and then the sound will come down. And then this is the release when I let go of the key. You can change how quickly the filter will act upon the two notes. And right here is how much of that filter will work. Okay, so let me bring down the filter a bit. So right about there. And as I bring up the envelope, what it's going to do is say kind of how much do I want this to impact the filter. How much does the attack, decay, sustain, and release envelope going to impact the filter? This is all the way up, okay? So 16 is all the way up. But then you can even bring it down a little bit. Resonance is like grabbing this particular frequency that you have locked in here on the filter and then giving it a little peak. So we're getting into like John Lennon territory. Ba-da-da-da. Simply having wonderful Christmas time. That's what he did. So I'll bring the filter down. Bring the resonance down a little bit here. That's great. And then here, automatically, like if you click over here, it'll show you this thing right here that says voices, okay? So it's automatically set to 8 voices polyphony. That means if I play a bunch of different notes, okay, it's a bunch of different notes at once. But what we want to do for a bass is get that mono. So that means if I play 2 notes at one time, they're not going to play in unison. They're going to play. We'll bring the volume up because we're losing some of that. So let's hear this. I'll bring a little bit of the release so you can hear it. And I want to correspond the release from the filter and the amp at the same time. Just give it a little bit of... Let's bring it an octave lower. What you also could do, let's not do that. If you click in here, it also comes with a sub. So that means that underneath what I'm playing is an actual sub tone that's playing along with it. So if you had it in speakers, you'd really be able to feel that. If you're in headphones, you can't really hear the low sub frequencies, but... Three and a 4 and a... All right, so good. Use this little fold feature so we just see the notes we played. That was pretty soft, so what I can do is just grab all of these like that, hover over this, it becomes a pencil tool, but if I hit Command or Control, it actually becomes a little lever so I can bring up the velocity. What Brandon talked about was giving it a little bit of saturation, which is like this little bit of distortion that comes with tape saturation. So Ableton actually has something called the saturator, which is based on a modeling of tape. That is like the dorkiest bass line. I love it. Sounds like Fieldy from Korn or something. So I got a saturator on there, which is great. And I'll also bring up an EQ just to like get some of those mid frequencies, because we talked about that. The mid frequencies need to really cut through. So you can use a bunch of different ones. You just open up Ableton's EQ8. And then another little trick I'll do is we talked about low compression. Ableton compressor. That's great. So we got a little dorky little bass tone that you can use on analog, which is great. The one other thing that I'll do is go into audio effects. So I'll open up an amp actually, and this is going to be really intense. So I'm going to bring down the, it's an amp simulator. So I'll bring the dry wet down right here. bring it actually before the EQ. And then drop a little bit of the highs off. But what we're trying to do is get a little bit of that mid and treble and presence in it. Throw a little chorus on that bad boy. So what I'll do is just show you what it sounded like beforehand without the effects. I'll grab all these and do Shift Control, which is grabbing them all, and then Command G, and that groups them. Okay, so now all of these different effects that we used, EQ, compression, chorus, they're all wrapped up in a nice little nest. So I can turn them all off like this. This is what it sounded originally. Turn it on.